for my week 3 mixed media prompt project for the hashtag Crafty Hope prompts. Let me tell you a little bit about Crafty Hope prompts. This is a project that I decided to come up with and create my own prompt deck with 3 prompts each week. And I'm inviting you to play along if you want. I have a list of the 156 prompts that I am pulling from. You are welcome to pull your own prompts. Use those prompts however you want. You can use my prompts. You can create your own deck. You can do whatever you want. I just ask that you use the hashtag Crafty Hope prompts so that I can see what you make. So that's kind of that. If you have any questions about that, I've got some information about it in the description box below, and I am welcome you to ask any questions and I will answer them. So this week I drew the prompts Spray Ink, Collage, and Cardstock, which are pretty easy prompts, I think, except for the cardstock. If you watch that prompt deck when I did the card, you'll see that when I pulled cardstock, I went, oof, because it's kind of hard to collage with cardstock. The bulkiness of it makes it hard to like tear and glue down. But I want to remember too that collage can be anything. Assemblage itself is considered a form of collage. And you know, if you've seen some of my assemblages, you know I'm just gluing down bits of broken jewelry and stuff like that. And yeah. So I decided to challenge myself a little bit this week. I started to pull out my junk journal and just play, but I was like, no, this is supposed to be a challenge for me. I want to do something a little bit more thought-provoking. So let me tell you, when I say spray ink, y'all, any kind of ink you can spray is fine. Take it as just spraying color or spreading ink somehow. If you don't have ink, you know, pull another prompt, use one of last week's, however you want to play along. Like I said, with collage, that can be anything: gluing down paper, gluing down broken jewelry, and then cardstock. Now cardstock in general is just a heavier weight paper, probably what you would get in a greeting card. So think about that. If you have greeting cards, use that. For my card here, I used an index card. So that's a cardstock. Maybe an old folder or something along those lines. I even suggested a cereal box, and y'all, that's what I'm going to probably use today, along with, so I've got some collage papers. I'm going to collage onto said cereal box. I think I'm going to put dictionary paper on the cereal box, and then these collage papers inside my little box here. This is a cradle board I got at, I think, Walmart, maybe the Dollar General. It came in a set of 3, and it's just a cradle board. I like to use it this way though, so it's got more of a Shadowbox feel of it, and that's what I'm gonna do. I even pulled out a focal I think I'm going to use. This cute little girl is a Tim Holtz product. I'll link that below. I can't think what they're called. They're like the paper dolls, but they're thick like the chip quotes. So I'm going to get to it, and I'm going to try to not complicate this, but we'll see. I want to keep it fairly simple, but I have an idea I'm really excited about, using that cereal box in this and the framing. So I'm a little nervous about it, but I really want to try it. And that's what this challenge for me is about, is using some simple prompts to really think outside the box. But I'm working in the box. You get it. All right, here we go. The first thing I decided to do was cut down that cereal box into something a little more manageable. I cut down both sides and realized that one of the sides wasn't big enough for what I needed. So make sure when you're cutting this, keep in mind what size you need. My little cradle board is 6 by 6, and I needed each of these to be at least 6 inches long. Now the width wasn't as important, but the length was. So this one that I cut down here, it works out, the 3 pieces I've got here, and then I've got, I think, 3 of like the sides and those kind of things. So that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to pull in next my I'm going to use a nonstick craft sheet and some Mod Podge. And on that printed side of the cereal box, I'm going to put my Mod Podge, just spread it out with a brush, and then lay some dictionary paper on top of that. I have a whole video where that's how I create the backs for my jewelry, y'all, is I put dictionary paper on cereal boxes, and then I put gesso, and that's kind of exactly what I'm going to do with this, but I'm only using some of this as a base. So once I get that glued down, the longer sides I'm just tearing off so I can use that later, and then those shorter sides are harder to tear, so I'm just going to cut them with some scissors. Like I said, I had a pretty good idea of what I wanted to do with this, but yeah, I did complicate it just a little bit, but it turns out beautifully. So to kind of put everything on the same plane, I'm going to use my Liquitex Basics White Gesso and go ahead and gesso all of everything but the back, basically, of this cradle board, which is actually the front of the cradle board. Anyway, I'm putting gesso all over it just so that there's a nice even coating of everything. And I'm going to let you see more of that than you really need to see, because the next thing I'm going to do is do the same thing on one of those pieces of dictionary paper on the cereal box. So, like I said before, I'm using the cereal box kind of as my cardstock. It really is heavier than cardstock. I know this, but I wanted to do something a little bit different, and I suppose I could have used cardstock to do it, but why not recycle if I can? So that's my jam. All right, I am finishing up here. I think maybe I'm trying to get the edges, and I will tell you that I did sand this before I painted it, and then after I painted it, I sanded it again just to get some smoother edges. So I just want you to know that, because it's not something I did on camera. It was one of those things while I was watching other videos that I did and just didn't bother turning the camera on. All right, so here I've got one of those pieces of the cardstock, we'll call it, that cereal box, and I am putting a coat of gesso on it. It doesn't have to be heavy or anything. More than anything, I want to make sure some of that cereal box doesn't show through. So I did all my pieces of cereal box, and once everything was dry, I'm going to come back in and collage. This is number 2 of one of my prompts. So I've got these little pieces. I was really going for what I like are things that are kind of neutral. I want things like white paper or yellowed paper with just some writing on it. Nothing with any color, because I knew I was going to bring color into the whole framing idea I had. So again, I'm just using the Mod Podge to stick everything down. I could have used the matte gel medium, but since I had the Mod Podge out, I figured go for it. And I'm going to lay this all out. I'm not sure how much of this I include, but I really wanted to go for some of the things I have collected in my thrifty hauls. Bits of paper with writing on them, lots of book papers. I'm in the process of trying to clean out the craft room and organize things and use some of the things that I have. Some of the newer things I have moved out of the craft room so I can use some of the things that have been lingering in here for ages. Like this, y'all, this is just notebook paper with writing in it. I have 2 really big full notebooks. The lady I got these from, it was an estate sale. She, I think, did genealogies, and these are all like her notes on different genealogies. And I looked up and got 2 notebooks full of her writing of those. So you can see I've got, I think there's a book on the right that looks like it's typewritten, and it is, I think it's from a what do you call it, shorthand learning manual. I'm making sure to bring in some of that dictionary paper that's there, just so that it is kind of comes, it is cohesive. Cohesive is one of my favorite words. So I'm bringing that in. I've also got some more handwritten papers there. I really love the handwritten paper, so I wanted to make sure that got in there. So I'm covering the whole surface using a key card to just kind of smooth everything down, trying to cover up as much of that background. And y'all, I was not worried about the sides at all. That's why part of the reason I gessoed everything is so I didn't have to worry about those sides too much, because it'll just be plain white. And because of the framing that I'm going to do, it's not important that anything is up on those sides. All right, I think I've got most of the areas I wanted in there. And then I've come in with a little bit of tissue paper and a new stamp that I just bought. This is the Ledger Script stamp from Stampers Anonymous. It's a Tim Holtz stamp. Nicole Watson had on her Instagram that this was on sale, and y'all, it was. It was like, I don't even remember, like $13 on sale on Amazon. So I grabbed that thing up, and I've been itching to use it. So I put some of my black Stays on it and put it down on that tissue paper to make just some really neat collage paper that looks like Ledger Script. I'm super, and so I've just used the one. And now I'm tearing down that tissue paper, and I'm going to use the Mod Podge to stick down that little bit. It's going to bring a little bit of darker black on here, but the tissue paper itself is going to kind of go transparent because of the Mod Podge. You can do the same thing with like I said before, some kind of gel medium or fluid medium will work just the same. And I'm smoothing that out. And I'm going to stick it down in 3 different places. Just, that kind of, it's not rule of thirds, but the idea that odd things are more interesting. So I'm going to stick those down, moving my little Shadowbox, cradle board, whatever, around to kind of see where I felt like it needed to be. I'm going to stick, I think, one more little piece down to cover up. I think that little edge over there didn't have quite enough on it, so that's where that's gonna go. All right, and this was super easy. This is, I did collage down that dictionary paper onto the cereal box, but this is really my collage there. All right, y'all, this is where things get interesting. I am taking those bits of cereal box, and I am putting a bunch of inks on it. This is my spraying portion, and I'm doing basically 3 sets here. This first set is, they're all going to be a Lindy's mica spray, a Distress Oxide spray, and a Distress stain. And on this one, I use Lindy's Cowabunga Copper, the Distress Oxide Iced Spruce, and Distress Spray Stain in Black Soot. So, and I put those just down in a certain order. I dried it a little bit, decided it needed more of that copper, which ends up bothering me later, and I'm going to add some Distress Spray Stain in Rusty Hinge later. So I put that aside to dry, and I'm coming in with my second set, which is, I'm trying to remember which one I sprayed first. It's the Distress Oxide in Mermaid Lagoon, and then I'm going to do the Lindy's Tibetan Poppy Teal, and then finally the Distress Stain in Cracked Pistachio. So, and again, I'll try this, take a look at it, and see if it needs anything added. I can't remember if this one got anything added. Y'all, my fingers got so messy in this whole process. I had like just a dark thumb all day. So I added a little bit more of that Lindy spray and set that aside. And then this third set is Distress Oxide in Walnut Stain, Lindy's Steampunk Sepia, and then Distress Spray Stain in Tarnish Brass, which ends up not spraying. I had forgotten when I used it last that it's not working. So I'm going to try to spray it here and go, oh, shoot, right. So I take the top off of it and get, I think I try one paintbrush, and I don't really like what it does. So I get I get this little tiny thing. Not digging that I'm getting enough of it down, so I'll get a bigger paintbrush and do it again. Yeah. And my big thing was I wanted that metallic really to show through on this. I wanted the framing of this, because this is going to be the top layer of my frame. I wanted it to feel kind of like an old tarnished brass frame. Man, I'm using tarnished brass. So I'm going to dry this, and I think I add a little bit more of the Steampunk Sepia maybe, just to get some more color on it. I had so much white on this one because that tarnished brass didn't spray. So I'm coming back, like I said, with that first one, and I'm using Rusty Hinge on it just to I wasn't digging the super, like red of it. It wasn't what I wanted. And then I've got my instant coffee here that I'm reconstituting, and I'm going to splatter just inside my collage here to break it up a little bit. I didn't want it to feel so blocky, and I thought that the coffee would give it some of that age, some of those browns that I did in the spray stains there a minute ago. So yeah, I got down there, dried it. Yeah, coffee done. Perfect. So now I'm going to take some of these fancy scissors. Y'all, these, I think they were really big with scrapbooking. I don't know. I don't even know why I have kept these, but I guess for projects like this. But I am going to cut down my strips here and get a scalloped edge. And so I'm going to do it on as many of these as I can. I need 4 strips, so for the 4 sides of my box, my little shadow box. So I'm going to go up one side, and then the side that doesn't have like the exposed scallop there, I'm going to go up the other one just to get another strip, to make as much of this work as possible. So it was a little fiddly. And then I measured out how big I wanted each of, like how wide I wanted these strips to be. So I put it on this, what do you call it, a square or something, or I don't know, and marked the sizes I needed on each end using the scallops as the straight edge, if that makes sense, because I wanted the scallops to be the main portion of it. So then I'm going to make a line down, and like I said, each of these had a different width of them. The bottom one has the widest, and then the middle one is a middle width, and then the top one with the brass is going to be the thinnest. So that's what I did, and then I went in and I darkened all the edges a little. I put, each of them got a different one. So that top one is getting walnut stain, the blue one's getting broken china, and then the bottom one is getting black soot. And that's all the distress inks that I used. So I didn't want y'all to have to watch me do this because it's just the same process. I'm using a cosmetic sponge. I did try, you'll see up there in the upper right, I did try one of those like makeup blending tool things, and it didn't work great. All right, so once that's done, I measured these to be about 6 inches wide each and cut them down because that's the width of the box. Now I'm going to tell you that I am going to overlap these, and I don't know what you call it, like a log cabin style. I could have mitered the edges, which I thought about doing, but I was so afraid I was going to mess it up trying to do that, and that I would have to start all over again because this was a process. So I'm, measuring these all like 6 inches and then just cutting them down to that 6-inch length. Yep. And double checking them. Yeah. And I did that for all of my, 12 strips. And then to glue them together, I'm using this Nuvo Deluxe Adhesive Clear Drying Craft Glue. And basically, I'm using it because it has a thin nozzle. And I didn't want glue going everywhere when I did this. I needed something with a really, tiny tip to it. So that's why I'm using this. It worked great. And as you can see, my blacker strip is going on the bottom with the blue in the middle, and then I'm going to put that one with the brass on top and make this super neat layered strip. Y'all, I don't know why I thought to do this. It was one of those things I just decided I wanted to do. I wanted to create a frame. That was my first idea, and I thought, ooh, I can make a scallopy frame. And then this kind of evolved from that. It's not something I've ever done before. It was time consuming, but I'm really glad I went for it and tried something different and new. Now, I thought about coloring my girl's jacket blue to kind of bring that blue in, but I had a different idea. So instead, to alter her just a little bit, I'm using that tarnished brass spray stain to accent the buttons. There's a stripe on her sleeve and then the bow in her hair. And it worked out really great. When it dries, it is great. And then I've got one of the chip quotes from Tim Holtz. I can't remember which set this is from. I'll put it below. But this one says, "Dream big." And I thought that was perfect for such a tiny girl. She needs to have some big dreams. So I am darkening it just a little bit with some antiquing wax. it doesn't change it a lot. I just didn't want the super stark white of that chip quote. So like I said, I darkened that, and then I'm just wiping off the excess so that it's just not quite as stark white. I don't know if you can tell the difference, but I totally can. And while I had that antiquing wax out, I am going to kind of just lightly go over the sides of my shadow box here with the same antiquing wax, and then just do the same thing, kind of put it on there and then wipe it off. Just so, again, we don't have that super stark white. Because all the papers that I put down inside that box are yellowed and darkened and aged. Nothing is super stark white in there. So yeah, I just didn't see the point of it. So I'm going to keep this in here. And then once I get this done, I'm going to start kind of assembling everything together, bring it all together. You know, for the 3 prompts of, what were my 3 prompts? Spray ink, collage, and cardstock. This isn't where I thought I was going to end up. I hope you like it as much as I like it, because, yeah, I can't help my little assemblages. They're so much fun. Okay, so I'm going to start gluing these down. The big thing for me was to make sure that the sides were flat against the sides of the box and overlapped that inside, so it gives it that scallopy frame. And I'm going to use Aleene's Tacky Glue to do this, and again, the reason I chose this glue is because I like this, I can't remember what they call it. It's like the ready one that comes upside down, so you don't have to shake it and all that. It's already all the glues at the bottom. And it's got a fairly small tip too. So you're going to see how like I said, I can't remember what the style is called. For some reason, I want to call it like log cabining or something, but I don't know if that's a real thing. But I'm overlapping them, making sure that each one of the corners, one goes over at the top and one goes underneath, if that makes sense. And I'm sorry, I'm a little bit out of frame here, but you can just see I'm making sure to get my glue down across the whole thing and then stick it down. I did not glue the top one down yet because this left side one has to go underneath it, and I didn't want it to be I didn't want to mess anything up. And I'm going to use Aleene's Tacky Glue for all of the other glues. I'm going to keep the inside image fairly simple. I did overcomplicate this frame, so I kind of wanted the inside to be super simple. So all I'm going to do, you see me, I'm kind of like, okay, we're just going to take this apart to glue this down. I'm getting there, y'all. All right, so I'm getting all that in. And I wanted y'all to see how I did this. Like I said, I could have mitered those edges and just, cut each of the edges at an angle and fit them together. But I was afraid that was going to be super complicated, and I don't really have a problem with that little bit of flow that this has. All right, I did leave that to dry for a little bit, and I'm coming back in with my little girl and my Dream Big, and then I've got some, and I think it's embroidery thread. I'm not sure. It's some kind of thread I got in a box of threads and stuff from a yard sale or something. And I'm just going to glue all this down. So I'm gluing my girl down. Also, she has kind of a cocked elbow, like almost like it's resting on something. So I'm going to make sure one of those threads that I'm going to put down here is kind of near her elbow. So it almost looks like she's resting her elbow on that thread. And my big thing here was I was trying to make sure that the ends of the thread got tucked underneath my Dream Big. So I'm going to put down some of my tacky glue, stick my thread in it, and then put some glue on the Dream Big, and I'm done. I know, this was way complicated for these simple things, but again, I wanted to think outside the box. I hope you enjoyed seeing this come together. I'd love to know what you think. I'm kind of in love with her. I hope you are too. Make sure to give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Play along with Crafty Hope prompts if you get a chance. And I will see you later. Thanks for watching. Bye.